Indiana fans are starting to get upset and fed up with this whole coaching search idea, and it's kind of understandable.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, and it is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay with us for the Armada Team of the Week later on in the episode, so thank you to Nissan. Well, hope you're doing well. Hope you are doing all right on this Thursday as we are getting closer and closer to the regular season finale of the regular season in college basketball, with Indiana hosting Ohio State. We'll talk about that, whether that's a play-in game or not for the Hoosiers and the Buckeyes coming up, plus the NFL Combine and Pro Day. The Hoosiers had their first Pro Day, or I guess their Pro Day for 2025, first one of the year for a Power 4 school, and some names started to turn some heads. We'll talk about that later on in the episode as well. But the question that everybody keeps asking is news on the way? Is news coming, man? Indiana fans are tired of waiting for this whole coaching search thing. And look, I totally get it. I totally understand why fans are upset and frustrated with this idea, right? It's been weeks. It's been several weeks since the announcement that Mike Woodson was not going to return as the head coach next year for Indiana basketball. And we talked about how the timing of that was really odd. And I'm still under the belief that if you're going to leave, just leave, right? I mean, he decided he was going to retire. He was going to step down. Indiana was parting ways, whatever wordage they wanted to use. Let's be honest. Mike Woodson knew he wasn't good and Indiana wanted him gone. Plain and simple. That's pretty much what happened here. And they decided, oh, we'll let him finish out the year and then we'll do this whole coaching search. We'll hire this coaching search firm and we're going to do this right. I mean, okay, right? I guess whatever. I know it's the same firm that hired Curt Cignetti, and it's worked out really, really well. I get that, and I'm sure that they are a big help. But fans are starting to get a little antsy, right? They're starting to squiggle in their pants a little bit because they're trying to figure out who is it going to be and when is it going to happen? And those are the two most important questions right now that genuinely we don't know the answers to 100%. But you and I have had the discussion in previous episodes about how it's tough to have an ongoing coaching search during an ongoing season. And for a place like Indiana, where you're trying to punch at the top, not above your weight, but you're going at the top, and you're trying to get the biggest names in the sport, like Chris Beard or Scott Drew or Mick Cronin or anybody like that we've talked about. I mean, those are big time names that Indiana's going after, even early in the process, of Bruce Pearl or Nate Oates or Rick Pitino, whatever the case may be. You're going after the biggest names in the sport, and they all have something in common here. They're actively coaching their teams, and most of those guys have NCAA tournament squads that they're currently coaching. And so it's hard to have legitimate conversations with the coach and even with those coaches' camps, right? With their people, it's hard to have those conversations right now because, oh, we're focused on the season. Give us a call in the middle of April. And you know what? Maybe that's what it is. But I think now that we're into the month of March, I think there's something to build on here. And I think you'll start to see the ball rolling a little bit because right out of the gate, it was super quick, super fast. Let's see how many names can get on the list and let's start eliminating. Let's start making calls. Let's see who's interested, yada, 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 right? And that's exactly what happened with the likes of Brad Stevens. Makes sense, right? Then it just hit a wall and it stalled. And you feel like there hasn't been a whole lot of true news about what's going on. Everybody's got an opinion. Some people say they have insight, others say they don't, and some say they do and they don't, right? There's a lot to decipher here. But what I'm telling you today is I believe that news is on the way. I think you will start to see as the NCAA tournament gets here, you see some teams eliminated and the seasons start coming to an end for some of these squads. That is when you'll really start to see this thing turn back up. And who's it going to be? Again, we don't know truly who that answer is going to be because then Indiana starts making calls. And whether that person picks up or not, they may pick up and listen. They may pick up and tell you to kick rocks. You never know. But we're going to find that out. And I still think the list is pretty intact for the guys that Indiana wants to go after. We've talked about them here already today. So just I don't want to say be patient, but I'm telling you it's coming. I'm telling you that it's going to be sooner rather than later. It's not going to be July before this happens, okay? It's going to be end of March, maybe early April, okay? I think that's when you're really going to see this come to fruition, and that will make Indiana fans very happy. Now, whoever it is, you're not going to make them all happy. I think we have found that out during this coaching search that there are a lot of people who want Chris Beard. There are some people who definitely do not want Chris Beard. There were people who wanted Scott Drew. There are some people who do not want Scott Drew. I mean, everybody's got an opinion. TJ Otzelberger, another great example. Some say yes, some say no. And that's how this whole thing is going to go. But IU and Scott Dolson and this coaching search firm are going to make the best decision for IU. Whoever they feel like they can win games here is who they're going to go after. Buyouts are not an issue. Let me say that again. Buyouts are not an issue for Indiana. They will pay whatever they need to get the guy that they want. So keep that in mind. I firmly believe, I've been told that. I think that is legit. That Indiana's not worried about how much money they have to pay. They're worried about getting the coach of the future and winning ball games. And there's a lot of good options out there for that. And I do think news could be coming soon. And I'm telling you just to hold on a little bit longer as the tournament gets here and the seasons for all these particular programs start to fade away. You'll start to see more big time news for who Indiana could hire as their next head basketball coach. All right, coming up here on Locked On Hoosiers, we're going to talk about the season finale a little bit as Indiana hosting Ohio State and what very well could be a tournament play-in game. More on that coming up next in our second segment right here on the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Nissan. The Armada Team of the Week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, our Locked On college basketball experts are picking one team that stands apart, from top-seeded stars to the unexpected upsets. These guys showcase the strength and sheer power needed to push their team forward. This week's Armada and clear-cut team of the week are the Houston Cougars. Since joining the Big 12 last season, the Cougars have gone a combined 33-4 in conference games and winning the regular season title by multiple games both years. There is no team in college basketball that is more capably embodies the rugged Armada than Kelvin Sampson's squad. Houston's tenacious defense leads the nation in fewest points allowed per game for the second straight season. When it comes to the Nissan Armada, they say go forth and conquer, and that's exactly what the Houston Cougars have done here. It's clear that our team of the week is out there and ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can do in the all-new Nissan Armada or any of the Nissan's outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com today. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. Appreciate you being here, making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. And you know the drill. If you're listening on audio, drop us a follow. Be sure you subscribed if you can. Have your notifications turned on. I don't want you missing any episodes that we post here Monday through Friday, free to you. Bonus episodes sometimes during the week, sometimes on the weekends as well. And so got to make sure you have those notifications turned on so you never miss a new episode. And for those of you who are watching on the YouTube side, the best way to do that is subscribe to the channel. It takes one tap. You become an everydayer. Your notifications will be turned on anytime we post anything, whether it's a video or a reel or a a poll, right? We do all sorts of interactive polls as well. Want to make sure that you never miss any of that on the Locked On Hoosiers YouTube channel. So if you subscribe, if you comment on our videos, if you like each one of these, that's the best way to engage with our channel, and really do appreciate you being a part of it each and every day. So as crazy as it sounds, Indiana is down to our final regular season game of the season. And it's not our final game of the season because we will be participating in the Big Ten tournament. But we have Ohio State coming in this Saturday. And because of the blunder we had in the midweek against Oregon, this has now become a very, very important matchup to where some people, some bracketologists, are saying this is a play-in game for both the Buckeyes and for the Hoosiers. And I think Indiana right now, based off of what we've done, based off the recent wins over Michigan State, who, by the way, just secured the Big Ten regular season championship with their win in the midweek, and Michigan losing to Maryland, who's really been on a slide, have the Wolverines. So Michigan has locked up the Big Ten regular season title. With a win over that team and a win over Purdue, the recency bias is in our favor. I've talked about that, how I believe that's a major impact on NCAA tournament teams, or I guess the NCAA tournament committee, right? And how they seed teams, how they put teams in, how they take teams out. I think it's a legitimate thing in the regular season. And so given that, I think Indiana has that on our side if we win against Ohio State, because what we don't want them to look at is the fact that you lose to Oregon and then Ohio State in back-to-back games. If it's a short-lived moment in the Big Ten tournament, we'll get to that in just a second as well. They are saying this could be a play-in game for the Hoosiers and the Buckeyes. And I do think a lot of that hinders on what they will do with, I guess, the results in the Big Ten tournament, which I've been telling you I don't know what they're going to do yet. But I'll tell you what I think from Indiana's perspective now that we've lost from Oregon, or to Oregon rather, and we have this game against Ohio State. I mean, obviously, winning games in the Big Ten tournament's not going to hurt you. I'm just concerned on how much it's going to help you, because we've seen so many teams, not just in the Big Ten, but across college basketball and major Power 5 conferences, where they've gone on runs and it just hasn't mattered. They've gone on big time spurts in their conference tournaments, and it just doesn't, they don't care. They don't care about what happens here. And that's my concern for Indiana. And I have said for my entire life, going into March, right? The last place you want to be, that you do not want to be here, is being a bubble team and needing wins in your conference tournament to make it to the NCAA tournament. That's a bad spot to be, man. Let me say that again. You do not want to be a bubble team in March needing wins in your conference tournament to get to the NCAA tournament, because of what I just talked about, because history is not on your side. And Indiana very well could find themselves in that spot. So could Ohio State, depending on how this game goes on Saturday, because Indiana needs a win, Ohio State needs a win. Problem is, the Hoosiers aren't going to get a quad one win here. And the problem, too, is you're not going to get one in the first round of the Big Ten tournament. You're going to have to win some games to pick up one of those quad one wins, which is why I told you the Oregon game was so important, because that very well could be your last shot to get a quad one win. And people are looking at our resume 4-12 in quad one games. That's not good. That's not good at all. And there's a lot of other bubble teams right now that have 5, 6, 7 quad one wins. There are some, like North Carolina, who have 1. They have 1 quad one win. I believe they're 1-10 in quad one games. Their only hope is to try and beat Duke this weekend. And even then, you can make the argument that they don't belong in the NCAA tournament, but I digress. We move on. Indiana, Ohio State, winner is probably in, because it's one of those games, and it's so weird too, and I hope we don't take this mindset. It's a game for Indiana against Ohio State where if we win, all right, cool. Yeah, you beat a quad 2 team on your home floor. Congratulations, you did great. We're proud of you. Yay. Nobody's going to care. But if Ohio State wins, it's, Great win. You beat a tournament team or a bubble team. You went on the road, season finale, put the Buckeyes in the tournament, and it could just drop Indiana right out of it. So that's where Indiana's at. We're in a horrible spot. Terrible. You're playing a game where you get no credit for winning, but you get bashed for losing. That sucks. That's a horrible spot to be, but you have to find a way to push that aside and treat this like it's a play-in game. So if you're Mike Woodson and you've got your team in the locker room ready to go, you tell them this is an elimination game. You want to be in the tournament, you have to win this game. Treat it that way. Why would you not? Sure, you could say treat them all that way, but let's be real. There's human nature involved, and Woody is Woody. So treat this game like it's your last, because I don't want to go to the Big Ten tournament saying, well, I think Indiana's probably got to make it to the weekend if they want to get to the NCAA tournament. Heck no, man. We don't want to do that. We absolutely don't want to do that, because listen to the teams that are around us right now. In your updated Big Ten standings as of the games through Wednesday night, you've still got Oregon ahead of you. Ohio State's right there with you. Rutgers is below you. Northwestern's in there. Illinois is in there above them. I mean, there are teams you just don't want to mess with. And I don't want to have to beat them in the tournament to make the NCAA tournament. And so you match up well, I think, with Ohio State. I do, who, again, is playing well. I mean, here's what the Buckeyes have done recently. They went on that 3-game skid of Michigan, Northwestern, UCLA, but they've turned it around with a win at USC and a nice win against Nebraska in that big-time bubble matchup, right? 116, 114 in double overtime. So they're feeling good. As where the Hoosiers are coming off a West Coast trip. We just lost to Oregon in a game we probably should have won, right? Had a lead with 1:58 to go and didn't score the rest of the way. So you're talking about two teams whose mindsets are completely different. Whose coach can get them ready to go? Whose coach can get them up to play? I have confidence in Ohio State to do it because they genuinely do need this game. Indiana, on the other hand, I don't know. Depends. This could be Woody's last chance to see what he's made of, to see if he can get his team ready to go. And here's another factor that it kind of just hit me, to be honest with you, that I haven't thought about. This will be Woody's last game at Assembly Hall. This will be his last game to coach inside that building. And it'll be senior day. You've got all that going for you too. If you're Indiana, you can use it to your advantage, or you can let it distract you and you can lose. Guess we'll have to see and find out come Saturday. We'll talk more about that a little bit tomorrow as well, with a full preview of the game in terms of matchups and styles and things like that. But coming up in our final segment on today's Locked On Hoosiers podcast, we'll talk a little football as the NFL Combine wrapped up late last weekend, and Indiana just had their pro day for 2025 with some names making some noise. We'll have that for you in our final segment coming up on Locked On Hoosiers. Final segment here on Locked On Hoosiers. Again, thank you so much for being here. Hope you're enjoying it. Hope you're having a good time, because I do, man. I love doing this show every single day. I love seeing you guys engaged and being involved in what you want, what you don't want. I mean, I love seeing it. I think it's truly become a community here at Locked On Hoosiers, and you are a big time part of that. So thank you so much. And we had the NFL Combine late last week. It started last Thursday, went through the weekend. Indiana had 2 guys invited to the NFL Combine. I think should have been more, but that's okay because the pro day proved it. But we had 2 guys who got to go to the NFL Combine: CJ West, Indiana star defensive tackle, and Kurtis Rourke, of course, Indiana's big-time star quarterback. Now, CJ West was the only one who actually, not going to say competed, I guess participated in the NFL Combine. You still have Rourke, who is coming off of the season surgery, or the end of season surgery, not the season ending, the end of season surgery, right? He's still recovering from that. He's expected to be fine, but he did not throw. He didn't do anything at the NFL Combine, but CJ West did. And I think he had some really solid numbers. And there's some quotes and videos of him out there where he's talking about how he's just grateful for the opportunity. He's just enjoying the ride. And it was really cool for this to be in Indianapolis like it usually is, because you got to do it at home. And I think a guy like CJ West, who isn't going to go 1-1, right? He's not going to just be the best defensive tackle in the history of the game, but he's somebody that you appreciate. He's somebody that you like. He's somebody that you are willing to take, I guess, a risk on. Heck, his numbers prove he's a stud. The numbers show, the film shows he's incredible. He's somebody you draft under the radar and then eventually becomes somebody really, really good for your team. And so go check some of those out. His quotes were really good. Again, just about enjoying the moment and being appreciative of this moment. And while Indiana only had 2 guys invited to the NFL Combine, we did just hold our pro day, which you know what that is, right? You have these guys, any of your guys come out, they have a chance to do basically the same style of NFL Combine things, right? All these different drills and routes and different, pumping up weights and doing things like that. And they invite as many NFL scouts that can come, and they sit around and watch. They stand around and watch and talk all day long and watch your guys go to work. So Indiana was, surprisingly, I didn't know this, they are the first team this year to hold their pro day for 2025. And a couple of names that stood out and made some really big noise for Indiana. We'll start on the offensive side, was Miles Price, the receiver. Yeah, Miles Price, the receiver, who I guess is making some noise and actually had a really good pro day. Somebody who was underrated on Indiana's receiving core last year, someone who was definitely overshadowed on Indiana's receiving core. But talk about a big play man. Talk about a guy you could go to on 3rd and long and make some crazy catches down the sideline. Miles Price was it. I mean, this guy, he was really, really talented. Listen to these stats from his year a year ago: 38 catches, 466 yards, had 4 total touchdowns, and also was a punt returner, right? Remember, he was the punt return guy for a long while there. So he was somebody, again, didn't get the ball a whole lot, but if you threw it to him, he caught it. And hopefully that is what NFL scouts saw with him as well. Hopefully that's what they were able to see was, this guy's pretty good. He's reliable, very reliable. His size isn't going to blow you away by any means, but he's somebody you can use in multiple spots. You throw it to him, he's going to catch it. He gets open, and you can count on him. And so Miles Price is making some noise and was impressive at Indiana's pro day this week. And then on the defensive side, on the linebacker core, one that I hate that we're losing, but God, I hope he gets a shot, is Jalen Walker, a guy who, another guy you could say was overshadowed, right, because of the one standing next to him with Aiden Fisher. But Jalen Walker's a stud, man. Listen to some of these numbers that he put up in the pro day. All right, 6'1", 218 is what he registered as. 6'1", 218 pounds. A 10.7 broad jump, which, according to Hoosier Huddle here on this website, says it would have tied him at second with the linebackers at the 2025 Combine with his broad jump. So not too bad. It had a 35-inch vertical. Says that's unofficial. Says that was an unofficial number. But sounds like his athleticism numbers, right, which is kind of what they're looking at, your explosiveness, getting off the ball, just your pure athlete, right, that you have in you. Sounds like he did pretty good. And so could a team take a chance on Jalen Walker? I think you probably should. Somebody that gets tackles in the backfield, somebody that gets sacks, he forces fumbles. He does it all, does Jalen Walker. And I'm just so glad to see that Indiana can have a pro day like this, to where several guys are able to compete. Several guys are able to almost make a name for themselves, right? Because let's be honest, NFL teams aren't respecting in Indiana yet. They're not going to IU and making this a special trip yet to go and find the next great NFL talent. I think they will, and I think you'll start to see that. But the Hoosiers have to develop good players and begin to put them in the league and show that they can do it. Show that you can count on somebody who plays at Indiana. And maybe that's a Kurt Signetti thing, right? Maybe that's this staff that has to change that narrative. But a day like this, a pro day like this, can help you with that. An NFL Combine where CJ West does his thing, yeah, you have a chance to do that. And Kurtis Rourke had some really awesome comments, again, dealing with the surgery and not able to throw. He said, look, I played the season, ended the season hurt. I played a lot of it injured and had to fight through that and still took my team to a playoff. He said, imagine what I can do when I'm fully healthy. Gotta love the confidence there, man. Gotta love the confidence that he has if a team does take a chance on him. He's going to have to fight, is our boy Rourke, but I hope he does get that shot. I hope they all get a shot in their next adventure, their next step, hopefully getting to the NFL this year for 2025. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Again, thank you so much for being here. Cannot express that enough. If you're on video, like it on YouTube, comment down below, subscribe to the channel. For my audio listeners, follow us, subscribe, turn on notifications, leave those 5-star reviews, whatever you got to do to help support this show. We greatly appreciate it. Football recruiting episode coming up tomorrow. Our guy Brian Smith joins us, our Locked On recruiting expert. You don't want to miss it. We'll have that for you on the Friday edition of Locked On Hoosiers. So until next time, Hoosier fans, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.